Welcome to the Reality Check with Charles Butler. It's our first show of the new year, and we are looking forward to spending some time with you today. We're going to have Mr. Larry Klayman with us. He's the founder of Judicial Watch and Freedom Watch. So, we're going to blow it up a little bit, and we're going to blow it up a little bit and keep it live. I'm sorry. I hope that you heard me. I don't think you did, but this is our first show, and we are going to roll through the new year. Have some great guests. Hopefully, break out and do our new TV show. And my guest will be my new co-host on the show would be Mr. Larry Klayman, and Larry. For those of you who don't know, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. So, we have a lot of topics we're going to cover. Tomorrow is going to be a big day for the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives. They're going to have a joint session. It's going to be interesting. I tell you, it's going to be history making. So you got to tune in and check it out. We're going to have Larry come on here in a second, and we'll bring him on. And let's see, I'm trying to pull up my Bluetooth. Let's see, let me sync that up real quick. Bluetooth. Da, 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 da. Okay. Bluetooth. Where is my Bluetooth? Here we go. Cancel. Bluetooth. Okay, Bluetooth. Let me connect to that. See, all these are things that go on generally behind the scene that you really never, hear about because someone else is doing them. But I have to do them on this end, and we got it done. So we'll get Larry on. And while we're doing that, I want to play something from Joe Biden.
We're in a situation where we have put together, and you guys did it for the President Obama's administration before this. We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Hold it. Now, they tried to say that Joe Biden didn't say this, that this was edited. Joe Biden actually said that. They say he misspoke. How do you misspeak about voter fraud? Hi, Larry. I've introduced you, and we got you on the line. So, here this guy comes out, Joe Biden, and he says, "Wait a minute. We've put together the most, like you did for Barack Obama. We've created the most extensive voter fraud organization in the history of politics." Yeah. Freudian and both Freudian and fraudulent. Well, Madoff. Yeah. Bernie Madoff. Yeah, well, yeah, Bernie did. And, Bernie's too funny, though. I tell you, I like the old man. I like his chutzpah. And I like the fact that he was in prison fighting back, punching him out, man. You know. Well, yeah, that's one thing, but look at the guy on the other side. Yeah, he the guy took money for the guy. The guy took money from the Chinese, and he's saying, "Well, well, I did, but I wasn't running for, I wasn't running for the Senate at the time." But this is the deal. This is the deal. Nobody's talking about, in my opinion, no one's talking. And I talked about this last summer. I talked about this last spring, actually, after the COVID-19 virus hit. I said, wait a minute, invest $100 million in BioNTech, BioNTech. Why did he invest all that money in BioNTech, right? He has been, Bill Gates has been talking about a pandemic and the world for the last 10 years. He got his pandemic. He got his pandemic, from what I understand, with the help of Mr. Fauci, Dr. Fauci. Now, and I don't know, Larry, how true this is, but everything that I have checked, it checks out. And I just don't, like I said, I just don't know how true it is, but it checks out. And that is, Fauci gave his wife, supposedly, a strand of this COVID-19, or some strand of a COVID virus that he could not legally research in the United States. He gave it to his wife. She supposedly took it to Wuhan, to this civilian owned or operated in communist China. Everything is state owned. And I don't know why people try to BS us about somehow there's some capitalist independence in China. So you go there. So Larry, that's not funny. So she goes over to China with this COVID strain, and it leaks out of the lab. In fact, the U.S., a big story this weekend was that the U.S. told the Brits that that this thing was leaked or released on purpose on the world. I believe it was released on purpose. The Chinese have released two. So this is the third strand Chinese have leaked to the world. I mean, how many viruses have we controlled here? We haven't leaked one. You got to tell, they leaked 3. These people. What did we leak? Oh yeah, I've had you get her on my show, but we need listen. We need to do our show, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in this segment. Go ahead.
Revolution, which people can get at Amazon.com. How we solve the huge problems that we've got today peacefully and legally with the new revolution. But Judy worked with Dr. Fauci,
right?
Use the term doctor lightly,
very,
in Fort Detrick, Maryland.
Right.
Okay, that's our lab where we study viruses. Yes. Now, we're not supposed to create bioweapons. Neither are the Chinese, nor is anybody. We're part of an international treaty, but of course, every country does. Now, go back to 9/11. The anthrax that got out, first attacking American media down there in Florida, and then postal workers in D.C., who I represented, by the way. I represented 8 African-American postal workers. And that's what happens. Yeah, so what Judy will tell you is, she knows firsthand, is that Fauci sent the seeds, the SARS virus, over to the Wuhan lab to do research with a $3.7 million grant by the Obama administration to pay for it. Now, why are we paying the communist Chinese to do this? Because the research could be done legally in the United States.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. And it's a lot like, when we farmed out torture, after the Iraq War. They couldn't.
Yeah.
So that's what happened here.
I mean, it's like waterboarding is torture. People play games with waterboarding. The soldiers play games waterboarding each other. Oh, and I heard Dianne Feinstein. Oh, it's so torturous. It's inhumane. I just wanted to just slap her. You know what I'm saying?
I know. I got several federal judges I like to waterboard.
I just wanted to just walk up there and just slap the taste out of her mouth. I am so.
You remember? I sued Sacha Baron Cohen for Chief Justice Roy Moore. but because he smeared him as a pedophile. And, if anybody calls a frog ugly, it's Sacha Baron Cohen. But there was one funny thing that he did on that show of his, This Is America or whatever, Who is America, where he has Dick Cheney, okay, there, and he's in disguise. And he says, I'm having problems with my wife. She never tells me the truth. I figure the only way I can get her to tell the truth is to waterboard her, right? Right. And he says, I got a waterboard right here. Will you sign it for me? And Dick Cheney signs it, best wishes in waterboarding. Dick Cheney, these are the people that are running this country. It's unbelievable. That's why we're in such the deep, what we are right now, Charles. This is it.
Yeah, we are. And, it's only getting, I remember when there was integrity, when there was honor. I make this analogy, Larry, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, if you think this has any merit or not. I say if we were trying to get civil rights legislation passed to end segregation, legal segregation in America today, that it would never happen because the civil rights movement did not have enough money to pay to lobby Congress.
Well, there's that, but there's also the question is, who is the civil rights movement? Do we have
No. I'm talking about back in the 60s, man. I'm not talking about today.
Yeah, well, you had Martin Luther King then. Well, great man.
But we had more than that. We had a civil rights movement that started after World War II. Martin Luther King became the face, and he was self-aggrandizing and whatnot. I'm not a Martin Luther King fan, and I don't think that any group of people have a leader. See, Martin Luther King was the anointed leader and spokesman for Black people. But if you remember, you're old enough. How old are you, by the way, Larry?
69, going on 70.
Okay, so you're young. You're around my age. And I don't know if you really know this or not, but the spokesman for Black people in the 60s was Jackie Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, he set the example.
No. Listen to me. He was the spokesman for Black America. As Jackie Robinson spoke and represented all America. And no, they really weren't. I knew that the Temptations used to come by my home. My cousin was friends with the Temptations, and he used to bring Otis by our house, and Otis drove a yellow Cadillac with the white interior convertible, and everybody would gather around, and he could barely get in our home. But
here was my point. Okay, my favorite music of all time is the Motown sound. Okay. This, people really looked up to these musicians. Okay, look at the music today, Charles. Okay, and every group, white, black, yellow, green, blue. Okay, isn't music anymore.
No,
I mean, and you could relate to that, and we could admire that.
Yeah.
And today, it doesn't matter what group you're talking about. We're down at ground zero with a bunch of lowlives. I mean, it's unreal.
Right.
And I'll say another thing just to get off the point. I'm playing golf yesterday. I got to get some fresh air. Right. And I'm walking, 9, I'll be 70 in 6 months, 7 months. Okay. I'm still in relatively good shape, but I'm walking, and there are guys behind me that are 40 in golf carts up against my rear end, making my life miserable because the world today, bunch of lazy people.
The difference is, Larry, I would have called the, what do you call it? The pro shop. And I would have, hey,
I agree with that. But on the other side of the coin, and these were good golfers behind me, why can't they walk? Why don't they want to walk?
Well, that's their choice.
This is the world today.
Yeah, but that's their choice to walk or not to walk. I don't really have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is people who infringe on my freedom and infringe on or think that they have a right to dictate to me what I need to do. Like, we have rules of golf. It's very simple. We have rules. We have etiquette in golfing. In fact, it's the rules and the etiquette of golf which makes it such a wonderful game, because most people aren't good. Most people aren't good golfers. I happen to be a relatively good golfer.
We'll have to play someday. I used to be good too when I was young. I'm still relatively good.
Well,
but look at Tiger Woods. He's had 5 back operations. He walks. What's the problem? No, it's unbelievable. He can barely walk, the poor guy. And but it's kind of metaphoric as to where we are in the country today. If you look at the music, you look at people that don't want to get up off their rear ends. that turn on Fox News, that just want to be entertained. People on cell phones that don't want to communicate directly with each other anymore, just sending each other, ridiculous or nasty texts or whatever. This is where we are. And it culminates in a totally corrupt government, which I wrote about in It Takes a Revolution. It's why we are in a revolutionary state right now. I suggest ways to do it peacefully and legally. You can get my book at Amazon.com. I'm pushing it a little bit here.
Yeah, please do.
Because I want people to read it, because this is me. I've come to the conclusion, Charles. You and I are going to do a show. I think you're great. You have a great sense of humor. I have a sense of humor. We can present a different approach than a lot of these shows that are a bunch of stiffs.
No question.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no question.
Right?
Yeah.
You can accomplish a lot with humor. Okay,
yeah, you really can.
Yeah, but the people are in a catatonic state. They don't know that this country, probably by midnight tomorrow, is going down the drain unless we rise up. And that's why I wrote the book. We're going to have, those Republicans are going to lose both seats tomorrow. Okay. And even if they won one, my prediction is a Republican senator in a Democrat state with a Democrat governor will turn up dead. And then the Democrats will have complete control of the Senate, and they'll ram through
Larry,
high taxes. Yeah. Okay.
Larry, it sounds like this is the beginning of another book.
It's funny you said that. My publisher today told me to write another one. This one's doing pretty well. It is. It's called The Pelican Brief. I think John Grisham already wrote it.
I love Grisham, man. I love Grisham. But do you remember some of Robert Ludlum's first books?
I remember them, but I've never read any of them.
I did. I started reading. Yeah. I started reading Ludlum early on, and Robert Ludlum wrote some great books. And like I said, one of them was about these Marines killing people for the Supreme Court justices.
Well, you think Scalia died by accident?
Oh, hell no.
Scalia, no, he was down there.
Scalia was stupid. Scalia was stupid. And these people were Obama supporters, man.
There was a very interesting story in the National Enquirer, which is not always wrong. Okay. And he went down to Texas. That's where he died, in a bed with a pillow over his head. I mean, that's strange in and of itself. He went down there and had told his U.S. Marshals Protective Service, judges get U.S. Marshals, not Secret Service, particularly Supreme Court justices, to stay home.
Right.
And the story, based on a source, said that he was there with him. The woman, was a plant, and killed him. CIA connected. And so, who knows? I'm not saying that's true or not, but it was very strange that the family never wanted an autopsy, just wanted it to go away. Maybe there's at least some truth to the first part of that story.
Well,
they didn't want to.
It seems like to me that story is repeated over and over and over again in Washington. It was reported that Ron Brown had a .45 slug in his head, and the reason that his wife didn't want an open casket is she was told by the government if she had an open casket and if she requested an autopsy, that they would take away all of her benefits.
Well, let me tell you the story here. You'll love this. Okay, there's a book called Ron Brown's Body by Jack Cashel. Okay, tells what I did. I'm the one who triggered the Chinagate scandal primarily with Ron Brown, because he was selling seats on trade missions at the direction of Hillary Clinton.
Right.
From on to the course of that investigation, I got to know Nolanda Hill, which was his primary mistress, Nolanda Hill. He had several. And I met another one named Ileana Madsen. She was Haitian. And Nolanda will tell you that she believes that he was killed. And the reason he was is because he was being investigated along with his daughter and his son, Michael, Tracy and Michael, because of his connections with the Chinese. Okay. Right. He himself was monetizing that over at the Commerce Department.
Right.
And a week, Clinton's there in his room kind of like a hillbilly, from Arkansas, barefoot, feet up on a stool.
Yeah.
And Ron saying to Bill, he didn't really like Bill.
I know.
Okay. I mean, Bill didn't like Ron Brown. He liked Vernon Jordan.
Yeah.
Okay, they didn't get along. But he's saying to...
Well, Ron was a smart guy, and Ron was a pretty, he was a sharp guy. He was a military officer. Everybody forgets that he was still an Army officer. Straight guy. I like Ron Brown. If Ron Brown had run for president, that would have been the first Democrat I ever voted for.
Well, here's what happened. Okay, it's a really interesting story. I write about it in my second book, Horrors, Why How I Came to Fight the Establishment. Is that he's telling Clinton at the time, he says, look, I've got to cooperate with the independent counsel. There was an independent counsel named Daniel Pearson, who was appointed from Miami, which is where, I'm from, adopted wise. And he says, I got to cooperate because otherwise they're going to indict my son and my daughter and everything, on this whole Chinese thing.
Right.
And Clinton, in a very terse way, arms folded, says, that's nice. A week later, he sent to Bosnia and his pathologist at Dover, and they were Democrats. And they said, we want to do an autopsy. They were called off on an autopsy, couldn't do it. And in his head, it was on the light box with the x-rays, was a hole the size of a 10 caliber or 45 caliber bullets, about the same size. Right. And they covered the whole thing up. And at that time, the Congressional Black Caucus said, hey, why is it that Ron Brown doesn't get an autopsy? If he was white, don't you think he'd get an autopsy? He's a cabinet secretary. Further, the story is even more interesting. John Conyers was renting office space from me, in my law firm. And Conyers, probably tape recording Brown hit because Brown was about ready to implicate him further in dealings with the communist Chinese. See, the whole communist Chinese thing, it didn't start just now.
No, it didn't.
Hillary was behind it. And let me say,
profanity.
Hillary with the Clintons, and I later wound up representing her, Yolanda Hill, because they framed her. Eric, and so it's a very interesting story, and I got to know a lot about Ron Brown. He was not a bad person.
No, he's not. It's John Wan put $300,000 from the Chinese military intelligence into the Clinton and DNC.
He was a judge who later sanctioned me in New York City named Denny Chin. Okay. And Denny Chin wouldn't answer the question whether he was recommended to the federal bench by John Wong during the Clinton years. And I later got John Wong to admit that in a deposition. I mean, it was sudden. Clinton didn't get billions like Biden.
The American people are watching, and the American people are pissed. Do you know, in this city, I mean, people call me all the time. And like yesterday, I got calls, and this guy was saying to me, hey, I'm having dinner with, and they'd run over